losing 20 years of his life. The only one who seems to really understand him is Carol. And she's the only one that's really kind of kept in contact with him. So now he has to walk this path, not necessarily of redemption, but of reconciliation, understanding, and forgiveness. And that really is not easy. Thematically, I mentioned this in the beginning. I thought this was a movie about hope. I mean, surviving prison, looking for another chance at life, getting out of a relationship that's going nowhere, starting a new life, reconciling with a loved one. I thought that was what kind of shined throughout this entire 1 hour and 49-minute feature. The second chance at life. I think everybody deserves a second chance at life, and Chris is trying to make the best of his. Carol wants to begin a new one, and I think Hildy needs to create a new relationship with her mom and also begin anew. You could also say thematically that this film revolves around innocence lost. Chris still needs to grow up. He lost a lot of his innocence while he was in jail, and there are still moments where you can kind of see through his actions he's still a little teenager, but he's just like I said, he's a teenager in a 38, 39-year-old body. Now, this is a very, very fulfilling film, I thought. And even though it's like an hour and like 20 minutes, I think you're going to enjoy it. I think it goes by kind of quick. It drags at certain points, but it moves relatively at a decent pace. In the first act, you see Chris is out of jail and he's trying to adjust to life. In the second act, you see him dealing with his emotions as he tries, and you see Carol also dealing with her issues at home. So you're looking at both of their issues in that midpoint of the movie as they're trying to resolve their own personal conflicts. And then in the third act, I think Chris and Carol both decide how their relationship is going to continue. You know, what are we going to do here? Okay, because they have their moments, but you're not quite sure where exactly this is going. Now, the film is directed by Lynn Shelton, and is also written by Lynn Shelton and Jay Duplass. And Lynn has roughly about 30 credits to her name, lots of TV, including Fresh Off the Boat. She was involved in that cable series Glow, The Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. She also did Hump Day, Your Sister's Sisters, and a couple other small-time feature films. Shelton did a great job, I thought, at creating compassion for Chris. I mean, you don't really learn about the crime that was committed until later on, but you always wonder, what did a guy like this do to get 20 years? Out of the gate, you automatically feel for him, and you're not sure why. You're not sure why he's had to go through this torturous experience. As far as the costumes and the way the characters look, I'm not sure why every white guy in this movie seems to have a beard, but that seems to be the look in Washington State, I guess, for Caucasian men in their 30s. But man, everyone has this really working class look. Plaid shirts, jeans, t-shirts, denims. I mean, their outfits, their mannerisms, and their interactions all seem to really ring true. Not that I've lived in that kind of environment, so I can sit up here and say, yeah, that's how they all look, but it just seemed to have that kind of feel to it. The overcast images of Washington State kind of give the film this kind of gloomy outlook, but it's representative of the lives I thought they were being lived, overcast and gloomy. And I thought that everybody was forever waiting for that hopeful sun to shine in their lives. So that, to me, the way the film is shot, the images, I thought kind of had its own kind of feeling to it that kind of brought you into that particular world. Now, what worked, I thought this was a truly amazing and authentic film. What didn't work, that it did drag just a little bit, okay? And it's rated R because there is some language a little bit in it. There's nothing unconvincing at all when it comes to my Aristotle index. And IMDb gave it a 6.7. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a scintillating 95. And the audience score hovered around 77. So this was, again, another really solid feel-good movie. Me, personally, the Cinema and Cocktails rating, I give it a strong 4 out of 5. I thought Falco was incredible in her role. She is such a far cry from Carmela and Nurse Jackie, but man, she is so good and believable. Duplass gives a very vulnerable performance, which makes you believe and feel for him for every minute that he's on the screen, and you just feel bad for this guy. There are moments where the movie kind of moves a little bit slow, and you're kind of wondering where it's going, but it does get back on track. And to me, basically, it's a mature, feel-good movie with no real sappy gimmicks. You smile at the end of it all, hoping for the best, which is essentially what a good film is supposed to do when you create powerful themes, tangible conflicts, and great characters. This is not a cocktail movie. It is not the kind of movie where you're sitting around sipping on something sweet and fruity that has bourbon or whiskey or gin or vodka in it, right? Chris and Carol strike me as the kind of people. What you mean, kind of people? They strike me as the, individuals who enjoy a good beer. Now, that can be an IPA or it can be a good craft beer, but regardless, I think this is where you want to go. So before this movie starts up, or when you're about to watch this movie, run to the store, look for some Dogfish Head, Lagunitas, Sierra Nevada, Elysian, Georgetown Brewing Company beer, Fremont, Mac and Jack's, Iron Horse, Bale Breaker, Silver City Brewery. Find a good old-fashioned IPA or craft beer and put that bad boy on ice. And then when the movie's about to start, crack it open, sit back, and start sipping. Even though Chris can't drink, I'm pretty sure that when he's finally off probation and he's sitting around, he's going to enjoy a nice cold one that's of this kind of style of beer. He's been through a lot, probably more than most people should have to endure. And to me, when the workday's over and he is on that couch, it's not Miller time. It's IPA time. It needs to be something special. And I'm not talking about Lowenbrow, but it needs to be something that he can relax, sit back, and think about his next moves in his new life. How many of you out there could be caregivers? Like seriously, like really selflessly give of yourself to other people. How many of you all could really pull that off? Like say, you know what? I'm going to be giving of myself to all those around me. Because that's where the film begins. It begins with Paul Rudd becoming a caregiver after dealing with or trying to navigate some personal issues that have happened to him in his own life. That's the premise of the movie. And it stars Craig Roberts and Selena Gomez, and as I said before, Paul Rudd. Now, Paul Rudd, Hollywood heavyweight. Okay, we're talking Wet Hot American Summer, Anchorman, 40-year-old virgin. Speaking 40-year-old virgin, whenever I think of Paul Rudd, I can't get out of my mind that speed dating scene with him and Mindy Kaling. That's comedic gold. Ant-Man, Parks and Recreation, Paul is legit. Craig Roberts has 42 credits to his name, more of a British actor. I don't know too much of his work. I do know that he was in 22 Jump Street, and he was also in that, the film about J.R.R. Tolkien, and he was also in another film entitled Just Jim. But apparently he is a up-and-coming actor who is on the cutting edge of becoming something really big time. So I would definitely look for Craig Roberts in the years to come. Selena Gomez, a singer, actor extraordinaire. She made her real big screens. I mean, obviously she's one of those Disney actors from way, way back. But to me, her first real grown-up role was when she was in Spring Breakers. Oof, that was a freaky movie. And she was also in Monte Carlo, and she was also in Behaving Badly. So those films are they're interesting. But to me, this one was an interesting transition for her because she kind of plays this. Well, you know what? I'll let you watch and enjoy it. Now, Ben Benjamin is a tortured soul, and we are immediately brought into Ben's despair early on in the opening moments. He is trying to deal with some personal issues, being out of work, navigating divorce settlement, and working with Trevor as his caregiver. He learns about himself and how to overcome his own personal issues. By the end of the movie, I'm not sure if he's a new person, but he definitely is different, and he has found happiness again, and more importantly, how to deal with his own personal tragedies. Trevor is a special needs person suffering from muscular dystrophy. Now, special needs is only physical, okay? This guy has sharp, dark wit that has been chiseled by his own outlook on life. And that outlook has been shaped by events that have occurred in his life. Now, by the end of the movie, I don't think he's changed that much. And I want to believe that he's still the same Trevor that he is in the beginning of the movie, but I think he's a little bit softer around the edges and a little bit more open to adventure because it took a lot for him to get out of his own comfort zone. And when he finally does, he's definitely better for it. Now, Dot is probably the most interesting of all these characters, I thought. She's trying to get to another place in life, and she joins Ben and Trevor on their road trip. Now, why she's going, I'm not really going to say it. I don't want to get into it. but you have to watch and find out. But she's also scorned, and she's trying to find herself and uses this as an opportunity to escape her own past. And when it's all said and done, you also feel that she's softened around the edges after her interaction with Ben and Trevor, and you do ultimately hope that she finds some kind of peace. Now, the movie is based on the book, so it's kind of hard to nail down the dialogue, which, to me is nothing more than a vehicle to kind of push the story along. Now, what do I mean by this? Like when you look at dialogue, like in Tarantino movies, it's an art. Okay, it conveys exposition, motivation, character. Like the Royale with cheese, or like in the Django Unchained, the guy in the Klan who kept getting upset because he couldn't get his eye holes right. Okay, or it's bank robbers trying to figure out who the snitch is in Reservoir Dogs. Dialogue reveals certain things about characters, but in this movie, I think it just kind of moves the story along. Their interaction and conversation doesn't seem forced, but it's definitely scripted, if you can kind of understand what I'm saying. Now, when it comes to the conflicts in the movies, there's three major ones, I thought. It's Ben versus himself, trying to get over his own personal tragedies and find himself again. And, he's dealing with his wife, trying to divorce him. He's out of work, and he's just trying to get himself back together again. The other focus is around Trevor and himself. He's a creature of habit. He's tied to his home, his routine, and going on a road trip with Ben is getting him out of his comfort zone. There's also a little bit of Ben versus Trevor. I mean, it's kind of like a buddy love kind of movie where they don't really kind of get along, but it almost becomes like a pissing contest to who's the most wounded or most hurt individual. But as they go on their trip, they do begin to realize how damaged they both are, and they have to find a way to self-heal and move on. And I think that dovetails into the plot type. Okay, you could kind of say it's a journey movie or a buddy type movie, but it really focuses around the two of those guys, and that all of lost moment that happens in these kind of these buddy type love movies or these plot types is when they realize that the moment where they need each other the most doesn't really involve them at all. What do you mean by that? Well, you'll understand what I'm saying when you see it. And both of them have this moment of change as a result of this particular climactic moment. Both of them, Ben and Trevor, have to find ways to forgive not only themselves, but the circumstances that have occurred to them. And every step on this road trip helps them get a little bit closer to finding out what it is that's wrong with themselves personally. Ben won't admit it, but going on this road trip with Trevor is trying to bring him closer to a resolution of something. And Trevor going on this road trip is getting him out of something that he needs to get out of personally. So when you watch this, you'll kind of get an idea as to what both these individuals are dealing with. Thematically, it packs in a whole bunch of themes. Okay, there's acceptance, there's getting to know one another, there's understanding differences. But to me, the bulk of this movie centers around forgiveness. Ben must forgive himself. Trevor must forgive the world for doing what it has done to him with this horrible disease that he's gotten. And Dot must forgive the circumstances in her life that has set her on her own personal journey. So there's a lot of issues revolving around forgiving in this movie that, to me, I thought was absolutely fantastic. Now, the film is only an hour and 37 minutes, but it feels like it goes a little bit longer. Okay. It's in the first act, we're introduced to Ben and Trevor. In the second act, you see them begin their road trip. About midway through, they meet Dot, and emotions become involved and things get complicated. And in the third and final act, Trevor and Ben confront their own personal demons. Now, the movie was directed by Rob Burnett and is written by Rob Burnett as well. And to me, I thought what really made this movie go was how a lot of it is shot inside just this van. And there's a couple of visuals when they go out to visit different places on this road trip. But overall, I didn't think that there was anything crazy when it came to the cameras or, tricky editing or anything of that nature. I did think that when Burnett was stitching together the motivation and the pain that Ben's character was dealing with, giving you these intermittent flashbacks, kept you wondering as to what exactly he's trying to do and how to get over. And I thought that part was absolutely brilliant, because throughout the entire movie, you're trying to figure out what has been so tortured, and you're kind of piecing it together, and it doesn't really come to fruition until